And I don't want to say it's the lowest point in Bears history. There have been plenty of low points, but at the Bears bar where I watch the Chicago Bears games, and that's Rip Beer Company, Huntington Beach, California, PCH location, at halftime, they turned the game off. They just flat out turned it off. Skip, the manager, he walked over and he said, "Hey, there's some fans here." I'm like, "Dude, do what you got to do. Do what you want to do." We were all morose. A lot of our regulars had already filed out. Our boy Sean didn't even show up, and it was Clayton and me and a couple of command. It was a bad scene because like the bar caters to, like, we have a Bears, like the Bears own that place, but there's also a Commanders fan who comes in and a Vikings fan who comes in. None of us was very happy, and thankfully there's no such thing as Chargers fans, or else it would have been even worse for that poor Viking soul. But for us, it was really awful. The only thing is Taylor Swift, I think, took a lot of the heat off of us. So we should thank Taylor Swift that she's been this story. Like, oh yeah, we got embarrassed, but like, look at Taylor Swift. How awesome that she's there. But you know what? This is the week that we're going to turn it around, and I am ready to get started. So Sammy, let's go ahead and start the show.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Adam Ray.
Trying to cut it back. Justin Fields making magic happen. There goes Fields. Touchdown.
The sickest Chicago Bears and fantasy football podcast. Brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sports entertainment like no other. It's gonna be sick.
It is Wednesday night. You know what that means. It is time for Take It to the Rank. New night, new time, and we will get you ready and sorted right before AEW Dynamite. And, of course, our friends at the Tape Never Lies Network, they kick off at 8:30 Eastern, an hour, 90 minutes from right now. But for the time being, we're going to sit here and try to entertain you as well as we can, because there's not a lot of entertaining moments going on with the Chicago Bears. A lot of the same issues that we've worried about, that we fretted about over the last, I don't know, forever, continue to rear their ugly head. By the way, it's weird to think about this, and a lot of people don't understand. And I will bring this up because the Dolphins just smoked the Denver Broncos, the Bears' opponent this week. But the Bears once beat the Washington football team 73-0 in the, 1941 NFL championship, one of those years. The Bears were the team that invented forward pass. We brought forward passing to the NFL. George Halas and all that. We're the ones who changed the game from being this run heavy thing to a pass happy thing. And we've cursed ourselves for that time. But I don't know. I'm still in the corner of Justin Fields. I don't know if the offense is helping him. I don't know. There's a lot of ways we can talk about this, but let's bring on, as she joins us every week from FoxSports.com, it's the great Carmen Vitali joining us once again. And Carmen, how you living, first of all?
I'm good. It's been a little hectic, a lot of travel recently, but I'm good.
Are you saying, like, you're in a blank room? Is it okay?
I know. I'm good. It's not a hostage situation. I promise. I'm in the process of setting up a new background, actually. So bear with me while I do that, literally, because it's Bear. Get it?
No,
we're talking about the Bears.
Yeah, Bear. You don't get to put anything on the wall until the Bears win a game, and
oh boy,
it might be that way the entire time. Well, I don't know. I want to talk. I wanted to. By the way, I wanted to say first of all, because we'll get into all the Bear stuff. I found your author page, and I was very proud of myself. It is foxsports.com/personalities/Carmen-Vitali. Kevin Jackson, do a better foxsports.com/Carmen. Done. I don't want to, I enjoy your work, but it's too much for me. Thankfully I can bookmark this now and go back. And then I made the mistake too, because I saw that the number one story on your author page is what we learned from week 3. And I'm like, oh, you wrote about CJ Stroud. You're like, oh, it wasn't me.
Wasn't me. That was our AFC South writer.
Which makes more sense, but I was like, I'm so jealous of the Texans because they never have like they've been doomed ever since they hung poor David Carr out to dry. They've been battling with their own quarterback issues over the last number of years. Their Ohio State guy is out there slinging it. Our guy, not so much. That hurts. That's why not our guy?
I have to think that, I mean, that was a system that is being put in place for CJ Stroud. This is the guy that was their guy right off the bat, as clearly. And that's the guy they were preparing to have come into their football team. And they've done a really good job, the Texans have, of making sure that CJ Stroud feels comfortable and he's being eased in the right way. And he has the things and resources that he needs, and that the system fits who he is as a passer. That's not something that the Bears have been able to do.
None of those words make sense to me. I've never seen that in Chicago. And I think a lot of it too. And I was on the radio in Canada earlier today, and I was talking about this. I go, the last couple of quarterbacks that we've drafted, we've really done a disservice to, because when Mitch Trubisky was brought in, it was the last year of John Fox, and we kind of forced him into the situation. And they had the long neck guy, Mike Glennon. And Glennon should have started the whole year, but it wasn't. And then Fox was forced to play Mitch Trubisky as a last-ditch effort to keep his job. And regardless, that John Fox should not have been hired anyways, but whatever. That's a story for another day. But the point is like, okay, well then when you hired a coach, he inherits a quarterback. And the same thing happened. Like once we should have learned from that once we hired Justin Fields, whether we liked Matt Nagy or not, we should have been like, well, I'm sorry, we got to bring in a new coach, or bring in a coach who wants to draft a quarterback. I don't know. It just feels like we don't really get a coach and a quarterback starting at the same time. Is that part of the issue?
Absolutely it is. And you can take that further to GMs. The Bears have not had a GM, head coach, and quarterback all aligned from the same regime. I don't know the last time they did, quite honestly. Like, I don't think it's been in my lifetime. Yeah. And it's one of those things where that matters an incredible amount, because as much as guys want to talk about the team and all the other stuff, these guys have egos. They do. And they want to bring in their guys, and they have a specific vision for their systems and all this other stuff. And that can sometimes not be the same as the personnel that you have. And I think that's what we're seeing with Justin Fields. I brought this up on Chicago radio, actually, because I really want to know the order of events between when the Bears brass knew that Luke Getsy came with Matt Eberflus. Because from my understanding, and the way that I've always known these head coaching interviews to go, is the head coaches bring in these giant books with them to these interviews, right? With either the GM and ownership, or if the GM hasn't been hired, with just ownership. And in that book, there's stuff like the first 30 days, the first 60 days, the first 90 days. There's coaching philosophies. There's scheme specifics. And then there's usually a section in there that says, I'm going to hire these coaches. This will be my staff. And if it included Luke Getsy right from the jump, so you're making a change from an offensive head coach to a defensive head coach. And that defensive head coach tells you, I'm going to bring in a former quarterbacks coach and put him in an offensive coordinator role for the first time, who's never called plays before. Yeah. That falls on the organization entirely, or whoever it is that hired Matt Eberflus, because that doesn't make sense to me. If you know that you have to develop a quarterback, fine. If you're not going to get an offensive head coach, I get it that you got burned this last time. So if you want to make that change, I don't think it's the right call, but if you want to do that, fine. But you better make sure he comes in with someone who is experienced and who has built systems before and built an offense before and has experience play calling and actively trying to make it easier on the guy that he's trying to develop. That's not something the Bears had. And so it leaves me to kind of wonder, I don't want to let Justin Fields off the hook entirely. Right. But this is why you hear a ton of people saying it's not all on Justin. And it's not. And I think it goes all the way up to the top, or whoever it is that the decision makers are, that are bringing in people that aren't is exactly what they were billed out to be necessarily. And it's not even their fault even. I think Getsy's just in over his head.
Could be. Yeah, because a lot of former NFL quarterbacks, Kyle Slaughter, Chase Daniel, who's a former Bear, of course, have echoed what guys like Dan Orlovsky and Kurt Warner and other guys have said. That's like, Justin Fields is very talented, and this all isn't on him. And I know that Justin does deserve like a lot. Like you need to make the plays as well. So I don't want to absolve him of everything, but I mean, it feels like I don't want to assess like it's 70-30 or anything like that, but whose fault is it? Who's it on?
I mean, it has to be on the decision makers in general. I just
Mhm.
think that there are two different kinds of coaches. There are coaches that have their systems and they need their personnel to come in and
Yeah.
execute how their system is already. Or there's coaches that take a look at who their personnel is and then tweak and kind of evolve their scheme based on that. From everything we've seen, we were promised the latter. I feel like in Luke Getsy, and that's what Matt Eberflus kept saying to us these last couple of off seasons. Like, we're building this around Justin. We're building this system around Justin. We're going to make sure to take into account his athleticism and all this other stuff. And we're not getting it. We're getting the former. This is the system that Luke Getsy has been in. He comes from that Shanahan tree because he was under Matt LaFleur in Green Bay. Mm-hmm. That's the only system that he knows. And that's the only system he knows how to operate, but that's not the system that Fields is going to be successful in.
Yeah.
So I think it goes back all the way to the beginning of the hiring process. And so that has to be the decision makers, because and maybe they were sold on being able to kind of tweak the system a little bit more to Justin Fields, and it just hasn't materialized. But we're in the second year now. That's what this offseason was for. So I have to feel like most of the blame falls on the coaching staff for failing to adapt to what their quarterback does. But at the same time, they didn't bring Justin Fields in. And that's where this disconnect comes in. And that's where your GM and head coach and quarterback not being aligned matters. There's a lot of blame to go around there. Like, I'm not going to place it all on them, but yeah. I do think that has a majority to do with it.
No, it's a huge issue too. And it's one of those things that, whenever you're going up for a job, and I'm assuming Luke Getsy he wants to be an offensive coordinator. He was the quarterback's coach for the Green Bay Packers. You're going to lie a little bit and be like, yeah, I'll make this work. Like, when I got rehired, I should say, at with the NFL media group, because I had gone from full-time to freelance and I was coming back into full-time. And when I came in, they're like, hey, we need you to be an editor. Hey, that's all you're going to do. You're going to sit on the news desk and edit stories and do that. I'm like, yep, that's the next chapter of my life. That's what I want to do. And then I was hired. And then a week later, I was in the boss's office. They're like, I want to write and be on TV. How do I do that? You know what I'm saying? Like, you'll lie to get in the door. And once you're in there, you change it. So I don't blame Luke Getsy for selling us a bit of goods, because everybody does it and it's fine. But the whole thing, it's like, somebody really needed to know when you came in, like, what offense do you run? Like, how does a Madden player would know, like, yeah, I wouldn't run this Packers offense with Justin Fields. Give me Greg Roman, or give me somebody like Greg Roman. And so now I wonder, and I don't want to get into this situation where we start like, like we're already like, I saw Brian today talking about like, well, when Justin's in Atlanta, I'm like, I don't want to get that far down the road, but it's like, it's one of those things. Like I sit here and I think about Kevin Warren, and I'm like, okay, does he just be like, you know what? All of you get out of my office. I'm starting from scratch. Like now, because I always felt like Ryan Poles probably safe, but I'm like, I don't know. All of you might be in hot water, and all three of you might be in someplace new next year.
Honestly, I don't see that happening. I think, but I do see the path of least resistance, unfortunately, is Justin Fields moving on. Yeah. And them bringing it and drafting a quarterback in the 2024 draft, which they've set themselves up to do. That was the point of getting the extra first round pick. And so now it's looking like they're going to end up with the top 3 pick. But even if that wasn't the case this year, they were insulating against finishing middle of the pack and still being able to get a quarterback. And I think that that's probably the easiest fix right now. Yeah. It's obviously nothing in the immediate. That's something that's going to have to happen after the season, because there's no point in getting rid of Justin now. But I think that's kind of the unfortunate path that I see the Bears taking, at least. And I mean, I could be totally wrong, but it just seems to me like that's the last ditch then effort, is like, okay, we brought in the GM and the head coach together. The outlier here, like the kind of one of these things is not like the other, is Justin Fields. And so then if you give them the opportunity to bring in the quarterback that they feel fits Getsy's system, or, whoever the guy ends up being, I don't know if they use Getsy as a scapegoat, which I hope they don't, but I feel like if then you have that year to figure it out, which just kind of delays this process a little bit longer. And I know that Bears fans' patience is wearing thin, and I don't blame them, because it's one step forward, two steps back every time. And it's just like you're constantly pining or wanting something different than what's there. And it's like, why can't we just have something that's cohesive? And so far the Bears haven't had that. And I think the easiest way to get that, though, is that Justin ends up moving on after this season.
Oh yeah, that seems like the inevitable thing. And we're lucky that the Fields family is pretty classy, because otherwise we'd start getting into the conspiracy theories about, like, are they not setting Justin up well enough? And is this because, like, it's going to be disappointing because we'll not win a lot of games. They will trade Justin Fields because he's still going to be under a rookie contract. He's going to get because next year he'll be his fourth year. The team that trades for him, be it like the Giants, or that's Giants, or not the Jets, probably Giants, Falcons, one of those teams, they'll be able to possibly go and put him on the 5th year deal, like, to extend him and everything and give him a look. And then they're going to draft a quarterback, and then it's not going to work out. And we're going to be like, oh, this coach, the coach does kind of like not know what he's doing. And then here's going to be Caleb Williams in year 2 going in new coordinator for Caleb. And it's like that's, again, it's leading me to the point of, like, I like these guys. I personally like Matt Eberflus. I personally like Ryan Poles, but I don't want to be sitting here next year, me and Big Cat, going on to all these channels, be like, I think the Bears can win 11 games this year. Like, think about it. Like, and we're going to look like fools because we're going to do it because we don't know any other way. Again, I go back to Kevin Warren, and I want to say this too, and I'm sorry as I get on my soapbox here for a second. I was talking to Michael Robinson the other day, who is one of the NFL Network analysts. You see him on NBC now for their Big Ten game. And he was talking about, like, Kevin Warren has made the Big Ten the most powerful conference in all of college football. They've got the noon game on Fox. They got the 3:30 game on CBS. They've got a primetime game on NBC, and they're bringing USC into the mix. So for anybody who wants to knock the organization and act like the Bears are some sorry run organization, Kevin Warren just started. And this guy who built the Big Ten into a juggernaut could do that with the Bears. I still believe that he might. I know it's not the Bears way, but this might be the new world order where he's thinking about the stadium and he's going to be like, you know what, you're fired. And Lincoln Riley's coming in, and I don't care who the GM is, but it'll be somebody new. And Caleb Williams is going to be calling this. Like, it's gotten so bad. Like, I'm now wistfully watching highlights of the Matt Nagy era. How sad is that? How bad is that?
It's bad. I don't want to get, like,
I know
despite the recent track record of the Chicago Bears, I don't necessarily know, like, if they have their guys for sure at the coaching position and they know what system they want to run, and either Caleb Williams or Drake May fits that system, or one of these quarterbacks in this draft fits that system, I'm not giving up hope that couldn't inevitably work out. I do worry about Kevin Warren because of the fact that this is very unorthodox to have a team president that the GM reports to, and that's over football and business, and like the business side and the business operations of the team. Those usually operate as two separate entities. And I just feel like putting all of that on one person's plate, it's one of those things, like, I don't know, if you have a multiple of these, you have none. You know, it's like, I don't know how you deal with all of that and function well when you're expected to be responsible for so much. I just haven't seen it done. That's the only thing, is I just really haven't seen it done to the point where the GM is reporting to a team president that is also trying to run the business operations of a team. So that's my concern. But before I go completely off the deep end, I think that you could follow a more traditional route of developing a quarterback if you just bring in a quarterback that's already going to fit this system. And you could see tangible results by the end of year 1. And if you do, then you're fine. like then you can continue to build. But it does delay the process another year now. And I just hope it wouldn't be a situation that you just described, which is what happened with Matt Nagy. And like,
yeah,
it's just, it's a vicious cycle, and I hope that they can break it. But it's disheartening. I don't have anything else to say. I've been talking about this for so long, and I'm so sad for Bears fans. I really am.
Oh,
I went through it growing up. I mean, I was devastated when they fired Lovie Smith too. That's been making the rounds too. Is like they fired Lovie Smith after a 10-6 season, and I was just like, why? My dog's name is Lovie. Legitimately, that's a thing.
Yeah, and people are like, oh, but we lost in this. I'm like, yeah, I know, like it's true, but it's like, I don't know. I would rather be in a situation where we're 10-6 every year and we're just a competitive team, and then who knows? Take a run for it here and there. It happens for I don't know. It's disappointing, and I think that the Matt Nagy example should be one that the Bears look at and be like, you ruined him, like you ruined Justin Fields by doing this. Look at what again, going back to CJ Stroud, like look at how perfect it's worked out, because CJ Stroud goes down there. The Texans look like a well-run organization after 3 games because everything lines up. The new coach, when DeMeco Ryans was hired, they brought in Bobby Slowick, who comes from the Shanahan coaching tree. So this does work. You can bring in coordinators from that thing, and CJ Stroud looks amazing. And you look at the Jags, who, and we love Doug Peterson, but like that year of damage that you did with Urban Meyer is still there. And it's like that's some trauma that still lurks in Trevor Lawrence's like memory. Like it's his core NFL memories still involve Urban Meyer. That if you had just, and I know that Urban Meyer was supposed to be that guy, so it was a coach and a quarterback starting in year 1 together. It was the wrong coach, but it's just, I don't know. I again, I don't want to get too far in front of it. I don't want to worry about it too much. And speaking of the Matt Nagy era, this week is also lining up because it's the same time of year, because I remember it being early October because I watched the Bears Buccaneers game, the 6 touchdown passes for Mitch Trubisky and Ryan Fitzpatrick gets benched. I watched that from Angel Stadium. So I know like this week is like lining up to be that moment. And like Justin goes out there and throws 4 touchdowns, and then we're like, hey, we're back. And then we got to go on a shorty to the Commanders, who, by the way, I can't wait to play the Commanders because the Commanders have allowed 19 sacks this season, and Sammy Howell has been sacked a lot, but that's neither here nor there. I did want to ask you about this because I've seen enough. Let's make Roshan the star. Can we make Roshan the guy? I love him. I love the way that he's running the football.
Yeah, I like the way that he runs football too. He runs it he's very violent, and he lowers his shoulder, and he's super physical, and I love that out of a running. I think we really need to shift the way we think about running backs just entirely, because anymore there's not RB1, like there just isn't. And if like the way guys get that kind of workload is if they're also factors in the passing game, like a Bijan Robinson or something along those lines, or Jahmyr Gibbs, who hopefully we see a little bit more creativity out of tomorrow night. But I mean, that's how you get that workload. You don't get that workload anymore with just being a running back that stays on the ground and only, takes handoffs and everything like that. Like that is now being phased out, I feel like, for a more running back by committee thing. So I think what the Bears are doing with Roshan is great. I mean, he's splitting carries with Khalil Herbert, and I don't hate that approach at all. I mean, I know for fantasy people, that sucks. But I really think that we just need to shift the way that we talk about running backs, because if I were to ask you who's the best running back in the league right now, who would you say?
CMC.
Exactly. And why is Christian so good?
Because he never comes off the field.
Receiver. He never, because he is also a receiver.
That's right.
So that's where this position is kind of evolving into, because it is a passing league still and all that kind of stuff. So I feel like what they're doing with Roshan is great. I don't see the need to make him a 3-down back, because I don't really see the need for hot take. I don't really see the need for 3-down backs as it is.
But see, my mild pushback on that, number one, would be again, they should be adopting more of an old Greg Roman Baltimore Ravens approach. And I know the Ravens did cycle in a lot of running backs, but I think a lot of that was necessitated because of the injuries. That if J.K. Dobbins had been healthy over the last couple of years, like they would have given you a steady force of J.K. Dobbins with Justice Hill and Gus Edwards being like periphery players or something like that. So that I would love to see the Bears.
You can still count the quarterback in those situations though as a runner.
Yeah.
So like you're still kind of cycling running backs, even though one of them is a quarterback. I will say in the beginning of the Chiefs game, I saw the Bears had multiple 2-back sets, the multiple plays with 2-back sets out there. And that's something that I talked about the week before in an article I had written where I was like, why are we not doing more of that? Why are you not making the defense contend with 3 potential runners in Justin and these 2-backs? Because defenses aren't built to, like, who would they key in on? They're not built to defend that. And so, and especially if a couple of those backs are guys that are also receiving threats, all the more better. And like, I feel like there's so much opportunity to mesh Justin back into the run scheme that we're just not seeing because they're trying to make him this rhythm passer that he just isn't. I don't know. I feel like there's so many cool things you could do with Justin, but now I just think he's also like, doesn't know which way is up. He's like drowning and doesn't know which way the surface of the water is. And I don't know how to get him back on track, but it's just heartening.
It's like that scene in The North Shore where Rick Kane gets knocked off the board and he goes down and hits the coral reef and he's getting tossed in the undertow and it's terrible. And again, going back to Roshan Johnson, a lot of that is, as you alluded to this, it is selfishly because I care about my fantasy football team. And by the way, Underdog Fantasy is the easiest way to play fantasy football. Just go to underdogfantasy.com or better yet, download the app, the Underdog Fantasy app. And when you sign up using the promo code SICK, Underdog Fantasy will match your initial deposit up to $100, which is great. And it's also, if you've not done this yet, then you're in luck because we're going to be giving out details of, we're going to start doing a guillotine league. This is for real. And we're going to do a best ball league because I've already got league. Like I'm already going to be eliminated in a guillotine league, and Underdog does this better than anybody. If you don't know what a guillotine league is, go to underdogfantasy.com right now, sign up, use the promo code SICK, and then over the next couple of days, we're going to give you information how we can join together to do a guillotine league. We're also going to do a best ball draft. So we're going to get a couple drafts going and keep us entertained as the Bears season starts to suck. We're going to play more fantasy football. Underdog Fantasy is the place to be to do that. I do want to say, though, I'm trying to remain positive as much as possible. Tackle leaders in the NFL. I just noticed this going through the NFL.com research packet. We're looking at guys who lead the league in tackles, and I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing because the defense is on the field so much. TJ Edwards, Tremaine Edwards, 2 of the guys in the top 10, or at least 10 or 12. I know TJ Edwards is high. Edmonds is either 10 or 12, somewhere in there. They're still like, those guys are nice, but why is the defense still struggling? What's the problem there?
Yeah, I think that's a deceiving stat because the defense is on the field so much. They just have a much larger sample size. I would be interested to know what their snap count is versus the other guys in that
percentage
on that list. Yeah, like give me percentage wise, like tackles, and then we can talk. But unfortunately, the offense hasn't been able to stay on the field. The defense just has way more plays. And there's been a ton more offense against the Bears. So that's one thing that I can't get past either. And I feel like a lot of this Justin Fields talk is kind of taking away from the fact that we haven't seen any improvement out of the defense either. And like, that's Matt Eberflus's bread and butter. He is a defensive head coach. So like, I get that you're trying to bring along a quarterback, but that's secondary to your particular focus, or should be at least. Like your focus should still be the defense if you are a defensive head coach. And then ideally you hire someone on offense that can kind of act as a head coach on that side of the ball. But like, why haven't we seen any improvement defensively? I mean, guys are missing blocks and assignments, and there's so much miscommunication out there and so many miscues, and guys don't know where they're going and they're running into each other. And I'm like, there's absolutely no pass rush to speak of. And I talked a lot about, and I don't disagree necessarily with building a pass rush from the inside out, But if your system, the Tampa 2 system, relies that heavily on a 3-tech, you better have that dude. You better have that dude. And they don't have that dude that can push the pocket from the interior. So it doesn't matter if you have Unique Ngakoue on the outside. He's getting double teamed because nobody's worried about the guys on the interior. And I just saw a stat. I think that it said Zach Pickens has like a 0% pass rush win rate. Pass rush win rate. That's so hard to say. And those guys have to start winning on the interior and pushing the pocket from the interior because you don't have the guys on the edge that are absolute dogs either. So and that is putting so much stress on the secondary. And now the secondary has a bunch of injuries to it. Mm-hmm. So like, it's all breaking down. And I mean, it's not surprising that, the linebackers are holding this team up, which we knew that was the strength of this defense going into this season. But man, we're not talking enough about how like Eberflus's unit is not together, and your defensive coordinator resigning doesn't help matters either. So it's a whole mess.
He said during his press conference on Wednesday that he's going to be calling the plays defensively for the rest of the season.
Right.
Does he know how to blitz? Has he ever dialed up a blitz just once?
Did you hear him too today talk about how he was gonna keep bringing 4? And like, I don't want people to equate the blitz with pressure. Like, you can get pressure with 4 guys.
Sure.
But at the same time,
if we were doing
it, you don't have the guys to get pressure with 4. So like, yeah, you should be blitzing a lot more. Not because that just automatically means pressure, but because you don't have those dudes up front. So also, why are you telegraphing that you're only rushing 4?
Way to go. Thanks, Matt. Like, you don't talk about anything, but you're out there being
you're going to out yourself like that.
This is what we're doing. I'm trying to think, like, there's been organizations, and I know that way too often I go to the 90s Cowboys because it's part of my core memories as a little kid of like how they were able to create. They had like Charles Haley and Tony Casillas and Russell. Like, they had these guys that could get pressure on a quarterback without having to bring the house. The Bears don't do that. So at some point, you got to go out there and you got to throw something at them. I saw Brian Baldinger, my colleague at NFL Network. He was on CHGO today talking about like, hey, when Patrick Mahomes goes to this is such a great analogy. When Patrick Mahomes goes to the carnival, like, he's going to knock down all the milk cartons unless you put your hand in front of his face or something. Like, try something. We're getting burned anyways. Like, let Sky Moore score on I'd rather just have Sky Moore score on a 70-yard touchdown as opposed to like 3. Although I guess that's what kept us from getting humiliated by the Denver Broncos. So maybe that's the one thing. That's the good thing about Matt Eberflus's defense is like we only allowed 40, not 70, and that should be something.
The funny part in using Mahomes as an example here, though, is that Mahomes is actually incredible against the blitz. Like in that Bucs Super Bowl against him, I don't think Todd blitzed at his lowest rate he had all season because he knew that he was going to need the guys in coverage. With Mahomes, you need the guys in coverage because he can extend plays for so long and he's so on the same page with his receivers. I mean, you saw all the videos of like Travis Kelce's just like running wherever he wants to, and like Mahomes can still pick him up, which is wild. But like, you need guys in coverage for that, so you can't afford to bring the house. I don't think that's the case though against the Broncos, and that's not the case necessarily against a lot of quarterbacks. It's just that it was just a funny example to use Patrick Mahomes, who happens to be one of the best blitz. I don't. You have to get interior pressure, though. That's the key here. And I think that's why they're failing so miserably, is because this system requires you to get interior pressure and you're just not. Because if you get interior pressure, you can get away with rushing 4. Yeah. That's not happening. And so I'm like, you need to start getting creative. Start doing stuff like, not that Minnesota is any sort of example yet, but I mean, this is what Brian Flores does with his defenses. Like dating back to Miami is at his entire time at Miami, he took them from bottom in the league in sacks to top 5 without ever having a double-digit pass rusher. And he did that because he didn't have that dude. And he knew he didn't have that dude. So there were like 13, 14 different guys that were registering sacks every single year because he's bringing pressure from all over the place. He's sending in safeties. He's doing corner, nickel blitzes. Like he's confusing the stuff out of an offensive line.
Oh, Sammy.
Sorry, Sammy. Because he knows he doesn't have the guys to beat these guys outright. So like, why can't we get more creative? Or even like more stunts or something? Just show me something that lets me know that you're self-aware enough to know that you don't have the dudes right now. So get creative. And it's going to be hard to confuse Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's seen everything.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That whole presser, I mean, Matt Eberflus doesn't really say anything in his pressers at all, but that was telling somehow.
That was wild. That was the one part where you're like, what is going on? And it's almost, and that's where I don't know. I struggle to have answers to a lot of these things. I do have an answer though, when somebody's like, where should I watch the games in Chicago? Because I will tell you, Game Room Chicago, located at the historic Chicago Athletic Association Hotel right across from Millennium Park, features billiards, shuffleboard, skee ball, pop-a-shot, and so much more. And it has plenty of space to watch your favorite football game. And with a menu featuring Michelin-starred chef Mari Katsumura's snack foods, beer towers, a weekend Bloody Mary bar, and shareable signature cocktails, Game Room Chicago is the place to be on game day on Sundays. If you are not going to be in the stadium on Sunday, make it Game Room Chicago right there. And if things start going sideways again, then they'll put on another game for you. But it's classy. It's a classy joint. It's not no disrespect. Listen, I hang out at Buffalo Wild Wings. I go out there. We go to Rip Beer Company. I'm hanging out in shorts and a t-shirt. And, but sometimes you want to get dustied up. You're like, let's dress like George Halas dressed back in the day and go watch a football game because you're inspired to be there. Will the Bears be inspired against the Denver Broncos? What happens? What is the mindset? Because it feels like if you lose this game, like, dude, you're losing to the team that just gave up 70. But that team also had Mike McDaniel. We've got Luke Getsy. But it feels like this is it. This has got to be like, not like the season's sort of going to be the way that it's going to be. But this one seems like one you will not be able to recover from if it does not go our way.
I mean, I feel like everybody's kind of dejected already in Chicago. Like, I don't know that anyone has. I don't think anybody has the audacity to have any sort of expectations for this game.
What?
Like, after I get it's the Chiefs, but like the Chiefs aren't the juggernaut, at least yet. Like, I fully expect them to like turn back into the juggernaut that they were towards the end of last season. But like, they were still figuring some stuff out. And I feel like everyone is already at that point where they're like, all right, the season's basically lost. And there's still a lot of football left. And I get that. But I don't know that, at least that's the feeling I get from around Chicago, is just like, everyone's just kind of dejected at this point. And I think that the team is kind of dejected. I mean, we heard Matt Eberflus talking about having that fight, having the attention to detail, but then having that fight and determination going forward. And I think this game in particular is kind of a testament of wills between these two teams, because I think the Broncos have the same mindset where they need this win too. They're both desperate. Yeah. But I don't think as a Bear recommend you having any sort of expectations for this game, like, and feel good about myself for like doing that. Like, I'm not going to set you up like that. I just won't.
Fair enough. It's also one of those things too, because earlier today, Milwaukee got Dame, and now the Bucks are having a basketball team again. And now I saw too, and I love Aaron Nagler. Everybody knows this, but he's like, I might be back in. He's like, I might be back in on the Bucks. And I'm like, you know what? That's a typical Wisconsin sports fan of like, now you're back in because your team's good. Like, this just shows the Packers fans, front runners. Oh, they wouldn't be there. They wouldn't be building these additions to Lambeau Field if they were like the Bears over the last 30 years. Oh, but you have quarterback Hall of Famers. You get a Hall of Famer on your basketball team, and now you'll watch. United Center constantly sold out. People are all into the Bulls. They go to our baseball games, all this stuff. So I don't know. I'm trying to find anything to help inspire the Chicago fans, but I don't know.
I don't think they need it though. I think for that reason, they're like, they don't need it. Like, it's sad to say, but like Bears fans will show up anyway. And I commend them for that. I love that about like growing up in Chicago and having this, like, especially because after I grew up and like I went to college, and then after college, I went to all these markets that aren't traditional, like really big sports markets. So like I was in Phoenix, I was in Tampa. They have their pockets and stuff, but it's nothing like, I took so much pride coming from Chicago and being like, you know, like, it doesn't matter how good the teams are. These fans are going to show up for them regardless because they're not fair weather fans. And there's an extreme amount of pride to take in that. And I wish that the teams were better and rewarded Chicago fans a little more often than they do. But I mean, Chicago fans have in spurts had it pretty good. I mean, you got the 90s Bulls, you got the 2010s for the Blackhawks, you got the Cubs winning in 2016.
The White Sox in 2005.
Yeah, the White Sox in 2005. I didn't mean to skip over them. I think you're now getting to the point where, like, yeah, it's been since 2016 that a team has won a championship. So it's like, all right, now you're kind of getting overdue.
Now we need something to happen.
I commend, and I've said this before on this podcast, it's the reason that so many people pick on Bears fans, because they're going to engage, because they are so passionate about their teams, even when they're bad, that people know that they can get engagement from the Chicago market by talking about them. So it makes Bears an easy target, but it's a weird backwards compliment to how passionate Bears fans are.
No, it's weird. And there's a couple other fan bases that are similar to that. Cleveland, Washington kind of going that way, but there's others that you're like, they'll just go away. I know that Lions fans are now feeling themselves and coming out of the woodwork. And there was a guy I know. By the way, do we have to cut you off in a couple of minutes too?
No.
Okay. Just want to make sure. Don't want to leave you. Don't want to be. There was a guy who came. He was like, "Hey, stop telling to start running backs against the Lions. You don't know what you're talking about." And I go, "Can't stop, won't stop." And he's like, "Oh, I'd love to play in a fantasy league with you." And I'm like, "Hey, pal, Kenneth Walker had 20 some odd points against your team 2 weeks ago. Like, what is wrong with you? Like, they just gave up a huge game to Kenneth Walker. You did a nice job against Bijan Robinson. Congratulations. That's more Arthur Smith than anything else. And if Aaron Jones plays on Thursday night, he's going to score a pair of touchdowns. So save it. You're saying he will play. You're not saying he's going to score. I'm saying he's scoring the touchdowns. You're saying that he's playing. You know, we haven't done that. We haven't taken any questions. I'm sorry, fans out there. We had a lot to get over, and we didn't even waste your time talking about Taylor Swift. We're probably not going to do it unless somebody has a question about it. But Sammy, what do we got?
I don't have much to contribute to that conversation.
Yeah. Do you think that Tyson Bagent will get a start this year? You know what? I keep waiting for this to be it feels like a card the Bears coaches have up their sleeves in the kind of the way of, like, if there is a matchup where they knew that Tyson could probably do pretty well in, like, I don't know, like the Titans. I'm not saying the Titans, but like the Titans have struggled against the pass this year, and you're like, okay, let's throw him in here. And if he goes out and does well, like, if you really want to, like, because the coaches heard what Justin Fields said the other day or last week, they're like, oh, we're in okay. You want to, like, it's like when they killed Joey Tribbiani off on Days of Our Lives. The writers like, oh, you think you write your own lines? Like, I could maybe see that, but I don't know. I think we're wish casting now if we think that a rookie who looked good in preseason is going to be the savior. Has there been any indication that Tyson would get an opportunity soon?
No, I think that has to come from the fact that obviously things aren't working with Justin, and he took a really bad shot in the Kansas City game and probably shouldn't have came back in.
Yeah.
But he did. And I feel like you get further into the season, it's a totally lost season, and you probably know by now that you're moving on from Justin Fields. If that becomes a reality and he starts kind of getting hit or it is being put in harm's way, I could see that being the case. I mean, it happened last year even with Justin Fields, where he just got banged up, and you had to have Nathan Peterman come in. So I could see something like that happen, but not until then. Like, I don't see that happening anytime soon. But I think this is also born out of the fact that we know that Tyson Bagent seems to be quarterback 2, Like he's the backup. It's not Nate Peterman anymore.
No.
So, I don't think that you're putting Tyson Bagent in there thinking that he gives you a better chance.
No.
At
the
this
fans,
point.
the fans think so, but the fans are desperate.
Yeah, I get the desperation, but I don't see that happening anytime soon.
It is one of those things that it's like when you're not hitting well with your driver and you're like, well, let me try another driver. And you're like, no, bro, it's your swing. Like, it's no driver is going to help you. Like your swing is your swing. And I think for a lot of the things with the Bears, like the coaching staff is the coaching staff, which again, it goes back to the whole thing of like, if they do have to draft a quarterback, I want to be in the interview room with Kevin Warren, and I want to put both those guys on the stand, so to speak. Be like, why do you get to come back? Like, we get it. You're going to have to send Justin to Atlanta. Why are you coming back? Why are we trusting you with Caleb Williams or
maybe
Dustin?
you bring in a new offensive coordinator though under Eberflus. I just don't see them. I don't see them getting rid of Matt so quickly, especially because like that means you still have to pay him, and I don't see this organization as wanting. I mean, everybody does it, but like I don't see them wanting to pay off a coach that's not coaching for them.
It's a new world now. We're going to be building a stadium in Arlington Heights. Like there's a lot of newness, and the whole thing. And like going back to the comment that you were talking about with Kevin Warren is that, a lot of times like the ownership's trying not to be involved. I think they're trying to, they get unfairly criticized like way too much. Because I do not believe that this is a situation like I'm an Angels fan. I know what bad ownership looks like. So I don't think that the McCaskies fall into that window at all. Like that is a family that wants to win. That is a family that helped found the NFL, that helped the NFL survive. There's no way. And they're trying to do what they can. Like we'll give it to people who are smart, like in these areas to get us to this new spot. So I think that there's a lot. It'll be interesting because it would be out of character for them to be paying off a coach this early into his tenure, but you never know. Like it is a new world for the Chicago Bears. Sammy, let's take another question though. What is the most positive thing you've taken from the first 3 games? Mine is that Gervon Dexter has been slowly showing signs of improvement. Yeah, we're drilling deep a little bit, but there's been some promise from some of these rookies. I still kind of believe in a lot of these young guys, Dexter being probably the better of the defensive linemen. How about you, Carmen?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you can see some, like, they absolutely did the right thing in drafting on traits with Gervon Dexter, because Gervon Dexter was not a guy that was in a one gap system in college. He was there to occupy 2 gaps. He was there to eat up space. He wasn't there to penetrate the pocket at all. But Ryan Poles saw something in him, and he came in and he talked about how that's what I want to do. I want to be one of those guys that's going after the quarterback, and I want to be able to be proactive in the pass rush. So I think that that's a good sign, because you can clearly you've shown that you can evaluate defensive linemen. I just think that you also probably needed to pair him with a more experienced guy if your 3 tech is that important and crucial to this system, which we know it is. Other than that, I mean, you're getting an impact from Tyreek Stevenson. He's taking his lumps too, but I mean, you got a starting corner out of the draft this year. So there's something to be said about that. And then especially having like Jaquan Brisker and Kyler Gordon playing the roles that they do. I know Kyler's hurt, but playing the roles that they do on the defense. I mean, those are young guys also. So you're getting some play out of the guys that you drafted, and I appreciate that. But I mean, it's not working still like it should. And I don't know what's the best. Maybe Roshan Johnson? Is Roshan Johnson also a bright spot?
There it is. Yeah.
Kind of find bright spots here. It's hard.
Tyler Scott's going to take one to the house this week. Like it's going to start to show off a little bit. Do you think, though, because I've been saying this on NFL Fantasy, or anytime I get to go on the air with the NFL Network, and because I know the Bears get lumped into like, oh, this is the team that could have had Jalen Carter. I am also quick to point out that Seattle and Detroit also passed on Jalen Carter. At this point, I still contend that it was probably the right move. I think Jalen Carter. Oh, that's what I was. I was doing a show in the UK. For Channel 5 in the UK, for Sky, is it Sky or whatever it is? Because the Monday night games, they can't show our commercials. So you got to go on for like 30 seconds at a moment's notice. Like, they're going to commercial. Get out there. And I'm like eating a burrito bowl. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. Like, hey, look at Jalen Carter there. I still contended, and I made this point on the show on Tuesday morning overseas. Jalen Carter went to the right situation, and he's in the perfect opportunity to go out there and show who he can be. I don't know. Like, with the way things are going with the Bears right now, I don't know if he might, like, who knows? Maybe he would be the guy that made a huge change and like made a huge difference on defense, and it's not as embarrassing. But I'm like, if we were still 0-3 and we had Jalen Carter, I don't know that would have worked out for the best. I think that it worked out well for everybody involved, and I just wish him well there in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I said that from the jump was, he needed to go to the exact right situation for that team to get the most out of him. I think that given his start to the season, if you're the Lions, if you're the Seahawks, maybe you have a little bit of regret there. But yeah, given the mess that the Bears have been, I mean, it's because it's been such a thorough mess, like a comprehensive mess, like on and off the field to start this season. That's not a situation that I would have wanted to see Jalen Carter go to. And I don't think it's somewhere where he would have thrived. I think that the expectations put on him had he come to Chicago would have not aligned with who he is as a person and as a player and all of those things. Like, I don't know that he would have made the difference that he made in Chicago. He would have made the difference in Chicago that he's made in Philadelphia. I think that was the perfect situation for him. But I don't think the Bears should have any regret for not taking him. I do, however, concede that maybe the Lions are probably thinking twice about that.
Yeah.
They're getting a lot out of their draft class though right now too. So I don't know that they're really regretting anything either.
Who's not? Yeah. My fantasy team's not, because Jahmyr Gibbs is not the player that he was promised to be.
Maybe we just still need to give him time. Verdict is still out. I'm not rushing to.
Absolutely.
I think tomorrow night, like, that could be very illuminating.
Yeah, fantasy.
If there's ever a place to bring it out, it's Lambeau Field on Thursday night.
Fantasy kooks are the worst, because they'll be the ones that, like, we did like months of research on this, and we had our reasons. We showed our work of why we think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to make an impact. And I'm sorry that it didn't happen in the first 3 weeks of the season, but ultimately by the time we get to week 12, and that's the thing, people are like, I can't wait to week 12. I'm like, well, you know what? Draft a better team next time. I don't know what to tell you. Draft more balance, but you had to go out and you had to bring them in. And I have Jahmyr Gibbs on a couple of teams of mine that are like, I know nobody cares about my teams, but what I'm saying is the teams are good. And that by the time Gibbs hits, it's going to coincide with the playoffs. It's going to be fun. So, but I don't know, who is the linebacker they drafted. Has he been any good?
Jack Campbell. He's been incredible. He's incredible. He doesn't, like, it's hard to quantify like that kind of play because he's so athletic and goes sideline to sideline. He also hits really well. Like, his tackles are violent, but he's so smart, and you can see how smart and cerebral he is as a player. I had Aaron Glenn, their defensive coordinator, tell me that, they see him as a guy that can be a true Mike linebacker in this league for the next 10 to 12 years. Yeah. So they're over the moon with their draft class. Obviously, Brian Branch has been making a lot of noise. Sam Laporta.
Oh my God. That guy.
Yeah.
That's embarrassing. And then they're all going to be wasted on the Lions. Like, all those guys are going to want to retire in 5 years because they play for the Lions. Like, I'm just going based on their history. It happened twice. Calvin Johnson and Barry Sanders. And Bobby Ross. You blew him out too early. Now, Bobby Ross. Wait, that was Bobby Ross post Chargers. Yeah, that probably did happen. Hey, Sammy, how about another question, though? We're not dangerously off course, but Carmi, have you been to the locker room lately? I'm really curious about what the vibe is in there. Yeah, what is, like, I know that we get to see, like, in Justin Fields, was that talk about a hostage situation. Justin Fields up there in front of the mic. We hear from players here or there. Tyler comes on the show and he seems like he's in good spirits, but he's a rookie. Have you been in the locker room? What is the vibe like with the team?
Yeah, I haven't been in the Bears locker room because I've been traveling all over the NFC North. So I haven't been in the Bears locker room since like week 1. And that was just a very dejecting loss. And I was in the Packers locker room for most of it after the game. Because
I would have been too.
Those are both my team. Well, they're both my teams. And like, usually when that happens, I go to the winning team.
Yeah.
But I darted into the Bears locker room also, and it was not a fun scene. I don't like going into losing locker rooms because it's really hard for those guys. Like I was just in the Vikings locker room after they lost to the Chargers in the fashion that they did. But I do think that there's something to be said about like playing football is one aspect of who these men are. So it sucks. And it's not to say that they don't give their all and they're not all into it. Of course they are. But like they have lives. They are whole and complete 360-degree people. So it's not like people are like hanging their heads and moping around in these situations. Like you go about your business as much as you can. Is it as fun as it is when you're winning? No. But it's also not like people aren't walking around like it's like the apocalypse or like the end of the world. Yeah. Like they're still humans with lives. And so they go about their business like they should. But from everybody I've talked to though, that has gone into the locker room in recent weeks, what does happen is like during the media time, everyone kind of clears out. Like no one really wants to talk to the media. So they're like not in the locker room. So the locker room has been more empty than usual during the week for open locker rooms. But yeah, that's really the only difference.
I wouldn't shower. I would probably bounce. I'd be like, yeah, I'm out of here. I don't want to talk to anybody until I absolutely have to. And because it's the same thing too. Like when you go into a locker room after a team loss, it's quiet. It's not like Moneyball or anything like that. There's nobody throwing Gatorade bottles across the room. It's not like the program.
Not usually. I have seen guys throwing stuff, but after a bad loss, but not like it doesn't happen very often.
It's an extenuating circumstance. I will tell you, I covered the LA Avengers the year that Al Lucas passed away on the field. And when they lost in the playoffs, that was the worst locker room to ever be in. And nobody wanted to talk, and none of the reporters knew what to ask these guys, to the point of like, I was a young person back then, and there was this guy for the LA Times named Chris Foster, who is a veteran journalist. I'm like, go ask something. Like, I'm a kid. Like, I don't want to go ask these grown men. But for the most part though, it's tough, and you got to go in there. And usually I have more experience with it in baseball. Yeah. And baseball, it's a little bit easier because like there's 150.
There's so many games,
in the minor leagues, 162 at the major league level. They're like that, like they're bummed, and like even then, they're like it's still a little like you guys, like you're fine. But yeah, so I'm curious, and of course, like Tyler, is trying to remain as upbeat as possible. So when we talk to him, it's like, yeah, he's a rookie, like of course, so he's not really. We can't judge for him, but I want to know from some of these. I want to talk to Cody Whitehair. Like, what do you see, man? Maybe one of these days we'll track him down if he'll come on, but whatever. Do we have another one, Sammy, real quick before we set up shop? Oh my gosh, I got to get out of here. Now I'm going to be the one. Do we just get rid of Justin Fields if we end up with Caleb? Can't we keep one? Oh, no. Mario, there is no way. There is no way. No, absolutely no. Because Justin Fields is a commodity. Like somebody will want Justin Fields. And again, I keep mentioning the Giants and the Falcons as two teams. I'm probably not thinking of one or two that could also be in the mix as well. Or you know what? Like if you're Kyle Shanahan and you're like, well, I might need a backup, or Las Vegas. Las Vegas is another team. Please don't go to Vegas though. No. Just go to Atlanta. I just had this premonition of like Ohtani could go to the Braves and Fields could go to the Falcons and be like, I'm just a sick podcast Atlanta. Sick podcast Atlanta with Adam Rank, as we're talking about. Would I have to like the Hawks then? I don't know. Are the Thrashers still the hockey team? I don't know. I would just do whatever, but no.
Yeah, think about it from Justin's perspective too. Like you're not going to want to sit and play for the people that benched you. Like, and also like that's a really good example of if you have two quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks.
100%.
I watched it happen in Tampa with Jameis Winston and Ryan Fitzpatrick. It didn't work out well for anybody. Having the other guy breathing down your neck. So like you knew you couldn't make a mistake. You didn't have the full trust of the staff. You didn't have the full trust and buy-in of the players. It's a whole mess. Yeah. But I mean, from just a basic level, like Justin is not going to want to sit and be benched in an organization that he was supposed to lead. Like there's no way. And also Caleb Williams and Justin Fields are 2 different quarterbacks.
It's not even
like
the
one
same
that whatever system would work for Caleb Williams or Drake May. I think Drake May would probably be a better fit for this current system.
Oh God,
it's not going to work for Justin. So
oh my God, we're gonna pass on Caleb Williams for Drake May. Son of a gun. I'm out. I'm out forever if that happens. That'll be it. That'll be the end of me. I won't be able to. That'll be another Mitch Trubisky situation. I won't have it. I won't stand for it. Nope, not happening.
Well, if they bring it, maybe they'll bring in a new offensive coordinator, and then they can take Caleb Williams. Like I get what you're saying, because Caleb Williams is, for all intents and purposes, we think this generational prospect. But then again, he's still in college, so who knows? Yeah,
we got to sell him. That's like a thing. See, that's another thing why I think it's good to have Kevin Warren is be like, our organization is fine. We're going to be cool. Like, you don't have to go back into the NFL draft. And it's funny because that whole notion of like Caleb Williams might not want to come out if the Cardinals have the first pick and they have 2 wins, or at least they beat the Cowboys. So it's like, yeah, like who's the bad team? Like who's the one that Archie Manning won't let his son go to? It might be us. But in any event, big game this weekend against the Denver Broncos. I want to thank everybody who joined us here this evening. I know it's not easy given the way that the season has been going, but you know what? Let's just have some fun with it. If you're in the Southern California area, feel free to come down to Rip Beer Company in Huntington Beach, California, PCH location. We will be there at 10 a.m. sharp for the kickoff, getting you ready for that game. And hopefully other games if you want to come down and you think you're having a good time. And Carmen, where are you going to be this weekend?
I'm covering the game in the Detroit Packers game. Sorry, just completely zoned out. I have that tomorrow, but I'm doing that from home. I don't think I'm traveling this weekend, actually, which is kind of nice, given that I've been everywhere and then some. But check me out on Kay Adams tomorrow morning.
Awesome.
I'm going on with Kay tomorrow.
Up and Adams. All right.
Well, awesome.
Yep. Well, awesome. We will.
Yeah. Check that out.
Well, we'll be excited to see you there as we are. And that's it. That's all we got for the tonight. Friday night, right? Or Friday afternoon or whatever. Ranks Rival will be dropping once again. So tune in for that as we get you ready for the weekend's game against the Denver Broncos. So until that time, for Carmen, I'm Adam. Bear down. And Sammy, go ahead and play us out.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Adam Rank on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. Brought to you by Underdog Fantasy.